Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Brendan McLaughlin.
I'm Tim Hevlier. Sorry, I'm Mike Broad.
You're going to start up. I'm sorry.
I forget who's who.
I'm Mike Broad.
I'm Tim Hafler.
And I'm Tonda Lee, Education Counsel at PLRB.
Yay, Tonda's back again.
All right, Tonda, what's the scenario?
Well, this time we're going to be dealing with a fire investigator. Fire investigator by the name of Alex gets a call from an adjuster about a house fire. The homeowner Lisa claims she was asleep when she woke up to her smoke alarms blaring.
Ooh.
She safely evacuated her home, but the fire destroyed her garage and spread to part of her home.
Huh.
The adjuster wants Alex to determine the fire's cause. Alex arrives at the scene the next morning to begin his investigation. So let's start with an icebreaker.
Uh-huh.
When investigating a fire claim, is it origin and cause or cause and origin, and why?
Now, I know the answer, but Tim or Brennan want to take a shot at it?
And it's a 50-50. Got good odds.
Well, last week, Tonda, I had a hot tip on your trivia question, so I secretly knew the answers ahead of time. I don't know the answer ahead of time to this one. I will say that cause and origin is ringing in my head better than origin and cause, but the reason I'm picking cause and origin is no more than the ring.
Oh, okay.
I'll go the other way because every time I say one, I'm like, oh, that's the right one. Origin and cause. Okay. Cause and origin. I'm getting all turned around.
And it really does matter. And Mike, do you want to share why it
Sure.
matters?
I will, but and you're both kind of right, because back in the day when I started in this wonderful business, everybody always said cause and origin, cause and origin. But then some smart folks said, you really need an origin. Figure that out before you can get to the cause. So the true answer goes to, I guess, Brennan, but then he changed his mind. But yeah, origin and cause. Figure out the origin
And
and
I'll
look at
give
the cause.
a little more detail because there's two important things. So Mike is right on point. You need to determine the origin in order to get to the cause, because cause requires two main things: a competent ignition source in the area of origin and the first ignited fuel. So you have to narrow down where that area is in order then to identify those two things. So that's why it is origin and cause and not cause and origin. And so now would also be a good time to mention NFPA 921, the guide.
Say who to what? Who to who?
NFPA 921,
Oh,
Guide for Fire and Explosion Investigation, because that's really where a lot of this is going to be set out. That's the standard for a lot of fire investigators when conducting origin and cause investigations. Now, the adjusters don't need to know every page of that. We're not saying run out by the book and study it, but they do need to know that it exists. And definitely fire investigators need to know how they followed that process when sent out to determine the origin and cause of a fire.
Do they have an audiobook version?
yeah.
I'm not sure, but definitely recommend that if they don't. We want the Cliff Notes. So let's go back to our claim.
All right, so where do we get started?
So investigator Alex is at the scene, and he's drawn immediately to the garage area because that's the area where he sees the most damage. So he's thinking maybe that's where this fire originated. And so he goes there, but there's little physical evidence because of the extent of the damage. And that's when Alex turns to video footage.
Uh-huh.
And so first he checks with the homeowner, Lisa. He says, Lisa, you have any security camera? And Lisa's like, no, that was just not in my budget. So Alex then does a neighborhood canvass to see if any of the neighbors who live next to Lisa have any cameras. And guess what?
What?
He sees that neighbor James has a Ring camera that captures part of Lisa's driveway.
Uh-huh.
I think he's a little intrigued.
So, any risks, or what are any risks, Tonda, with waiting to check or get that third-party footage?
Well, you can just imagine right now, people have these systems, these video camera systems, And there's just so many different configurations. So I think the main risk is losing the footage.
There you go.
So you need to get there, talk to that neighbor and say, hey, we see you have, I'm X, Y, and Z. I've been hired by this insurance company. There's a claim. I see you have a camera. We wanted to know if you recorded footage on this day. And if so, how is that footage stored and how long do you keep it? So you definitely want to make sure if you are at risk of losing that footage that you get it as quickly as possible. And sometimes you might have to be very kind or even with the person who has the footage to see if they will voluntarily give it to you. Other times you might not be able to get it unless you have a subpoena, which means there has to be a lawsuit. So you just want to make sure you get it as soon as possible, and then you do your best to get the cooperation from the person who has it.
Makes sense.
And so that brings me back to I have a personal situation. So have any of you ever had a situation where something was stolen or damaged and you had to resort to video camera footage to figure out what happened?
I've been lucky, not yet. No.
No, just me.
I haven't had any porch pirates. But
no.
I do enjoy the videos of raccoons that people catch with their
Right.
Okay.
Well, I did see the one dog that came home. It was gone for like 3 weeks, and it jumped up and it rang the doorbell.
Oh, wow.
And rang camera and said, "I'm back." So that was pretty
all
nice.
right.
No, that's definitely a reason to have a Ring camera in case your animals need to come back home.
Right.
But I unfortunately did have an incident where my son's bike was stolen right outside of our garage. My son literally runs in the house for a second. He gets a sip of water and he comes back. And interestingly, they left their old bike. So they took their son's newer bike, but they left their older.
It was a classic. Right. It was a vintage classic
bike. Have the nicest bike. And so we were really intrigued for another reason than they left their bike. And so I'm like Homeowner Lisa. That was out of my budget to have Ring cameras all on my house. But my neighbor across, I live with an alleyway. My neighbor has HD cameras.
Oh.
So I run over there and I'm like, neighbor, somebody just stole my son's bike. And he shows me the footage. And sure enough, there's two youths out there and they're communicating using hand signals. One is on the lookout and the other one drops off his older bike, steals my son's bike, and then they ride off into the sunset. So that just illustrates how useful this video footage can be in these type of situations.
Well, hang on.
They sound like professionals.
Yeah, no.
Definitely.
Hand signals and everything.
Even the police officer, when he came, he was like, "You want me to take the bike?" I'm like, "Yes, we don't want their bike." Like, go ahead and take it. And I did give him a CD of the burnt footage that the neighbor had captured, just in case he wanted to be at lookout for those two bandits.
Did you ever get the bike back, Tonda?
We did not. No, we did not. I mean, they were very good. So hopefully sooner or later somebody got through to them and they stopped doing that. But never got that bike. But my son did eventually get to the big bike. So he outgrew that one pretty fast.
All right.
So let's go back to our homeowner, Lisa. Unlike her, I don't have cameras, but we have some good neighbors who do. And the neighbor's footage in Lisa's case reveals something crucial, a faint flicker of light in the garage before the fire erupted. So Alex is interested. He wants to know more. So then he turns to social media. So let's think about our garages. And now, what do we know about garages? Now, do you all have garages? Do you park in your garages, or are they basically storage units?
Park.
Good for you, Tim. Ours is a storage unit, and during winter, it's also our other refrigerator, too. So, so we keep stuff cold. But yeah, I think about it, Tonda. We got like a jet ski out there. My son's got a dirt bike. Got fuel all over the place out there, Tonda. Oil and gas and all sorts of flammable stuff out in my garage, which could be bad if there's a fire, trying to figure out exactly what ignition source caused this here thing.
Exactly. And that's one of the tricky parts of the garage fires. There could just be so much in there. And a lot of homeowners just let it accumulate. They don't really know. Now, I will say my garage is pretty good. We got a separate storage unit because we were accumulating too much stuff. So I really don't have a lot, and it's all kind of organized around the walls. But some homeowners do have stuff just piled around, workbenches, tools, just collecting things in their garage. And that can be hard to remember what was in there when you have a fire like this that damages a large part of the garage.
Oh, hang on, though, Tonda. Am I the only one who uses our garage as a temporary refrigerator, too, when our refrigerator's full?
So I do have a little compact uh, freezer that I used during the pandemic, but once things died down, everything started coming back in the house. So yes, you might be the only one, Mike.
Ah, geez, all right.
Like, how do you control that? It seems like it would switch between a freezer and a refrigerator kind of on its own.
It doesn't get that cold in there because it's our garage is kind of attached to the home, so you're already getting some little bit of heat going in there. So it stays at a good, even if it's cold out, you're going to get about a 40-degree-ish temperature in there, which is perfect for refrigerator. So you folks don't know what you're missing, is what I'm saying. You live in a colder climate like we do. There is your advanced, or even if you want to keep adult beverages like my beers that I occasionally have cold, and my wife doesn't want me to take up valuable fridge room for beers, so you might find a beer or two on my garage floor cooling down the winter times.
And I will tell you, I've gone in my car the last couple of days, and there's some frozen waters in there, so I definitely know that works.
Uh-huh.
So in Lisa's case, she's basically like you, Mike. She's telling them, I had a lot of personal property boxes and totes of stuff in there. Can't really recall. And so Alex asked her, does she have any neighborhood watch apps? Remember, that neighbor said there was a flicker of light in there. And Lisa has no clue who was in there. And she says, yes, I have the Citizen app.
Uh-huh, me too.
So I know we have, the Ring has an app and you can leave stuff. There's Neighborhood. I think there's another one on my phone. So I only have at least two on my phone. But she goes to the Citizens app. She searches for anything around the time of the loss. And she discovers that someone in the neighborhood reported suspicious activity outside her home earlier that evening. Particularly, they saw two individuals near her garage shortly before she noticed the fire.
Uh-huh.
So Lisa talks to her son, and her son says, guess what? I do recall some friends being over. I tell you, these kids are going to drive us all crazy.
Right.
And then Alex, the investigator, gets their names. He interviews them. And what do you think happened? Anybody know?
They were smoking unknown substances that might be legal in certain areas, but then that was the little flicker. Huh?
Oh.
They were teaching each other the hand signals.
Oh, I hope not. Not stealing any bikes, I don't think. Well, they were in there looking for some tools, and they knocked over a battery charger.
Oh.
And Alex believes that is what led to the fire. The battery was charging, and if you know, lithium batteries have been a big issue for overheating and exploding. And so Alex, based upon both getting that information from the Citizens app, identifying those individuals, the friends of her son, he's able to start to piece together what he thinks happened in that garage that led to this fire. So based on this information, it looks like we have our origin and our cause. If you were a fire investigator, Brennan, Tim, or Mike, would you have done anything differently from Alex?
Wow. Alex is pretty darn talented, so I don't know. I mean, maybe, when you're looking for video evidence at the neighbors, you could also ask the neighbors too, did they see anything suspicious? You can, if they don't have a camera, it's wise to ask. You never know who's up late at night.
Yes, definitely.
Would have seen these rascals out there messing around in the garage at that time.
And I know I definitely have some peering neighbors, so that's the great suggestion. I mean, they know everything's going on in the neighborhood.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I would have thought of all of these tricks. So you talk to get the Ring cameras and the Citizens app technology. I might have brought in an expert to kind of solve some of these from the forensic side.
Yeah. So let's wrap up this claim. With this evidence, Alex drafts the detailed report to the adjuster who retained him. The insurance company determines that Lisa policy covers the fire damage. It was accidental, but they want to look into those use to see if they can recuperate any of that money from that.
All right, Tonda, what can we take away from this scenario?
This claim highlights why digital evidence can be very helpful to origin and cause investigations, particularly video footage, social media applications, and like Mike mentioned, just good old-fashioned neighborhood canvassing, getting out there and talking to people who live in the area where the fire was reported. All of that can help get important clues and information to piece together what may have happened to cause this fire. An adjuster should be aware that this evidence may exist and seek it when appropriate.
And Mike, where can an adjuster go to learn more?
Well, Tim, of course, you can check us out at plrb.org, where we got tons of stuff, including some awesome new modules, one titled Adjusting 21st Century Fire and Explosion Claims, that gets into some of these investigative tools and techniques that Tonda was talking about today. And in that module, you're going to see how the investigators looked at different fire and explosion losses, tips for your teams of adjusters and investigators on how to use science and technology to reach the right conclusions. And Brennan, can we share all this stuff in the show note links?
Absolutely. And there you'll also find a recap of the key points from this episode and links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us. And please give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story.
Wait, any voicemails?
Not just yet.
Jeez, how many times do I have to ask people?
All right, 630-509-8704.
Give us a call, yes.
We'll see you next time.
All right.
All
Bye,
right,
everybody.
goodbye,
Thanks, Tonda.
everyone.
Good job.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.